Welcome to this week's episode of Build the Weight Loss Practice of Your Dreams. I'm your host, Carol Clark, and we are talking about turmoil today. And typically, turmoil is not something we like to have in our weight loss practices, but it happens, and there seems to be a lot of it going around nowadays. So if you are experiencing turmoil, you are not alone. The important thing to understand is that it all is fixable. It just requires a number of different things, and I'm going to touch base on that today because I know it is a hot topic right now with so many practices that I'm working with, whether it's turmoil in terms of your team, having people leave or trying to attract new team members or that sort of thing. For some, it may be financial related to all the chaos that's gone on in the world lately. So it might be financial, or it could be growth related. Perhaps you're having too much growth at one time or too little growth, and that's creating turmoil in your practice. Or there may be a little bit of patient turmoil that happens from time to time. Fortunately, not very often, but for most practices, but it is something that can happen. And so we want to address some of those situations. So if you are experiencing some turmoil in your practice, which, like I say, you're not alone, and the important thing is that it is fixable. First of all, try really hard not to panic. And I'm talking about from the owner all the way down through every team member. It is something that sometimes you'll get some news and it is a panic. Perhaps you've got, there's so many different things that can be going on. Like I just mentioned, it could be a separation from a group of physicians. It could be bringing on new team members or a new physician. It could be so many different things. But the first thing is do not panic. We don't want to panic. And we also want to assess what all your options are. And the awesome thing is, as time progresses, there are so many unique options that are out there, even for team members. I mean, I have some groups I'm working with that are using virtual assistants. Who would have thought years ago that we'd be using virtual assistants at times? I have lots of different creative ways that people can deal with different turmoil in their practice. So the first thing is, like I say, don't panic, and then consider all your options and be creative, thinking a bit out of the box, for lack of a better term, and sometimes brainstorming that with someone from outside counsel. If it's something legally related, it may need to be discussed with your attorney. If it's something just business related, maybe your business coach. That might be something that's really helpful. And so involve outside counsel as necessary. The other thing is to involve your team. They want to be a part of solving turmoil. And so including them, they come up with great ideas, and it can be really helpful depending on how sensitive the topic is. But your management team, all the way down through employees, depending on the size of your team, they can be very, very helpful. If it's something team related, you do want to make sure that you have a solid employee handbook in place, that you know what it says, that you're following your employee handbook and any contractual agreements that you have, whether it's with a physician, a practitioner that you have, whether it's a personal trainer, one of your dietitians or nutritional counselors, any contractual things you have, maybe even you have contracts with some marketing teams and that sort of thing. You want to make sure you know your contracts, because that can help you avoid turmoil actually. And you do want to make sure you're following those, particularly if there's some sort of a separation with a team member or resignation or termination or that sort of thing. So knowing that, and then tweaking it as you go along and making sure everyone has a copy of the employee handbook and knows their contractual agreements is really important. The other thing is to implement some damage control, and some damage control can be anything from trying to just have your eyes and ears open always and really nipping potential larger problems in the bud, addressing those earlier, being very consistent. Anytime you have something going on, I always recommend that you be very fair to all your team members and firm. So they need to know that someone is in control. They need to know that there is a direction that we are going, and that is really important. Once you do those initial actions that I just talked about, then what you want to do is follow your instinct a bit and avoid a sense of paranoia. Sometimes you can think things are going downhill and they're really not. So it could go both ways. So you do want to trust your instincts and trust if you think there's an issue going on in your practice. A lot of times there may be. Sometimes, depending on how your mind goes, because we can all get a little bit, some crazy thinking sometimes, or a little bit of paranoia, we want to make sure we keep that at bay. So assuming the positive, being positive about what's going on and being very solution oriented really helps to avoid that. The other thing is when there's turmoil, you need to be visible. Now is not the time to go hide in your office and hope it goes away. It's time to be visible, and it's time to be very communicative and as transparent as you possibly can be. Some issues are very sensitive and you can't actually talk about them, but you do want to be visible. Let them know that you are there. There is a plan in place. You're working on one. Involve them as necessary, but people need to know that. It provides a sense of calm. If you're hiding in your office as an administrator, manager, physician, anything like that, when there's a big set of turmoil going on, it actually can create paranoia on behalf of your team members. And sometimes they get so nervous about stability that they may make a rash decision, and you want to avoid that. So being visible, communicative, and transparent as possible, and then involving your team, as I mentioned earlier. Don't avoid being in the trenches. Of course, we can't live there the whole time because we all have different genius zones and talents and things that we need to be focusing on. If you're the practitioner, you need to be focused on patient care and making sure everything is perfect there. But you do want to make sure that you don't avoid getting in the trenches and being visible. And then finally, one of the most important things is to make a decision. Now, granted, we don't all make perfect decisions all the time, but you can't live in obviously a state of questionability or in a state of limbo in your office. People need to know that a decision's been made. You may alter that down the road, and that's okay. We all may need to make changes as we grow and our team changes, but we want to make sure that we do make a decision and then start to move forward. When there's a plan in place, it just creates so much more calm for everybody involved, and it also opens those lines of communication, as I mentioned. So we do want to make sure we're following those issues. In Bariatric Business Boss membership, we are diving deep into team turmoil, financial turmoil, growth turmoil, like I say, whether it's too much or too little, and then also any patient turmoil, which fortunately for the practitioners I know that I work with, the patients are really happy and getting the results that they want. So I love that. So I thank you for all you do for your patients each and every day. Turmoil is so unpleasant, and it's not something we look forward to. However, I have known a few people in my career that actually thrive on turmoil and just seems to be their state of normal being. Not that it's a healthy way to be, but we do have some people like that. But we want to minimize turmoil and increase consistency and make sure expectations are clear. And if you follow the guidelines I just reviewed, you will find that turmoil ends up being something more manageable than what we all may think. So that's my podcast for today. I thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you're not a member of Bariatric Business Boss, check it out, bariatricbusinessboss.com. Or if you just want a free opportunity audit where we can sit down and talk about whatever's top of mind for your practice, I welcome that as well. You can find a link to sign up on my calendar at weightlosspracticebuilder.com. In the meantime, as I say, thanks for all you do and take care.